Backhand kick, and what a goal it was! Stewart makes it 1-1.
And it is a gorgeous little chip.
This could well be the moment. It is the moment.
Hello and welcome to Kickoff, the Football New South Wales podcast for NPL men's, women's and leagues competitions. Today, it's our NPL women's season preview. I'm joined by my co-host Maeve Sparrow. Maeve, great to see you again.
Great to see you too, Teo.
And NPL New South Wales commentator across men's and women's, Nikola Pozder, has jumped in for this one. It's become an annual event now, Nikola, and I think the coaches and some of the players around the league, they all listen in to hear what you have to say. So I hope you are ready to come off the long run as we record the pod today.
Yeah, I think my name will be, and some comments will be plastered around some change rooms, so I'm looking forward to that this season.
We have not actually discussed our opinions before doing this podcast, so all our reactions to each other will be completely fresh. I think we've got ample notes, and I want to give a big shout out to Dominic Creniti. You'll read his reporting on the Football New South Wales website. He's played a massive role in making sure we have all the squads, at least to the point of recording, end of February, ready to go. As we know, this competition does undergo a big upheaval at the transfer window, but we'll discuss the mechanics of that team by team where it's relevant. Maeve, to start, let's go through all of the trophy holders and some of the key things like promotion and relegation as it affects NPL Women's New South Wales from 2025. Let's start with the grand final.
The grand final was amazing. I was there at Jubilee Stadium. It was awesome to see so many people from Bulls FC Academy and also Apia come out and show their support. Bulls FC Academy took out the grand final. They beat Apia Leichhardt 4-3 after extra time. Honestly, Pozder, what do you think?
I thought it was an incredible final. I was there as well, and I just couldn't believe the drama that we had to live through. There were red cards, there were goals, some phenomenal goals as well. In the end, Bulls were the best team last season, and they duly deserved to lift the trophy.
And somehow, not even the highest scoring or craziest swing of comebacks in a grand final in the last 10 years. There's just something about this level of competition that the grand final and generally high-stakes games, they always seem to deliver the drama, don't they? Which is why we love the NPL.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Apia's now been involved in the last two grand finals where they haven't come up trumps. And again, drama in both of them. And it's just such an exciting competition. You never know what to expect here. You think it's all over, and then out of nowhere, everything flips and turns.
Now, there was another major piece of silverware awarded just a couple of weeks before that, Maeve, with the team that finished on top of the home and away.
It was the premiership. Bulls FC Academy also took out the premiership. They came first with 52 points, and Apia came in second with 49 points. Both of them were neck and neck all season, and honestly, I'm so happy that Bulls took it out, to be honest.
And you were commentating the decisive game, Nikola. Just the way the fixture worked out was perfect. We almost had two grand finals in the space of 3 weekends.
No, you couldn't have drawn it up any better. Well done, Football New South Wales, with that. But it was a really good game as well of football. And I think that the two best teams in the competition last year went down to the final day to decide who wins the premiership, and then the final day, obviously, to win the championship. And again, like I said, I think Bulls were the best team last year, and they deserve to take the double.
Apia would not leave empty-handed, though, Maeve.
No, they finally had a win. They took out the Sapphire Cup here at the Home of Football Valentine Sports Park. They beat Mount Druitt Town Rangers 3-0 in the grand final.
Yeah, it was a pretty one-sided affair, that one. Mount Druitt did give their best, and I think their run last season in general was phenomenal. But in the end, Apia was just a little too strong in the final. Mount Druitt ran out of legs. I think personnel was getting short at that point of the season, and Apia, well, they want to win as much silverware as they can, and they deserve to win that cup.
And let's go to the bottom end of the table, Maeve. It's 1 up, 1 down, as is the case again in NPL Women's New South Wales. And it's decided by the club championship. However, the team that finished last in the women's seniors was also the team that finished last in the club championship
Yes.
this in the 2025 season. So bring us up to speed on that.
It was Newcastle Jets that got relegated. They had 74 points, and the team that was coming in second last had 102, so a bit of a gap there. In their seniors, they had only 4 wins, 0 draws, and 22 losses. They had 28 goals for and 86 against, making their goal difference negative 58.
I'm actually intrigued as to how they'll go in League One, because they should still be a good competitive team, if not. Is pushing for promotion too much to suggest? I mean, it is an A-League academy. They should have a pretty good, have found their level, and it would be nice to just see them have a season where they win more than they lose.
Look, I think they will win more than they lose, but I don't see them challenging for promotion this year. And we talk about A-League academies in the Football League One competition. Central Coast Mariners are there. They haven't been able to really get out of that competition. We know it's a pretty tough league. The Jets, I actually thought last year they were going to have a solid start to the season. I expected them to be a little better than what they were, but they really fell off, and they've lost some key players going into this season, as we'll talk throughout this pod, strengthening other NPL clubs. So, yeah.
And their replacements, Maeve, coming up from League One.
It was Hills United. They came first with 62 points from SD Raiders, who were on 53. They took out the club championship on 309 points to 271.
And we will get to Hills United's squad as part of our team-by-team preview. We're going to discuss a heap of players. We're going to discuss every club one by one, and we'll finish the pod with some of our predictions and things to watch in 2026. But as we leave 2025 behind, Nikola, just one final word on sort of the trophy holders and the defending champions of each of those competitions. Do you think we will look back on 2025 and it'll be a distant memory, or do you think this might be 1 year of many in a dynasty? Or do you want to save that until we get to the individual teams?
I think we'll talk about it more when we get to the teams, but I do believe there'll be a third player that joins the two from last year in this battle for silverware in 2026.
All right, well, that's a nice little tease. We'll have a quick break here on Kickoff, and when we come back, we're going to go in reverse ladder order. If you're wondering where your team is going to fall, stay with us. We'll be back in a second. Every NPL New South Wales match live, free and on demand on YouTube. Subscribe to the Football New South Wales YouTube channel today. Welcome back to Kickoff. It's time to go through team by team. We're going to name drop as many players as we can. And just a reminder that we're recording this in late February. So if your coach is playing this to you to try and fire you up after the transfer window, then you've been led down the garden path. All right, Hills United, take it away, Maeve. What do we need to know about them?
Hills United, they finished first in League One. They had 20 wins, 2 draws and 2 losses. They had 93 goals for and only 12 against, leaving their goal difference 81 plus, which is absolutely insane. They finished in the club championships on 309 points in League One, and in the Sapphire Cup, they lost in round 4, 3-1 to MacArthur.
So, Nikola, looking at the squad, both in terms of new arrivals and players that helped them win promotion, what grabs your eye about Hills United?
I think they've recruited pretty intelligently for their first season in the top tier. They brought over 3 players from the Mount Druitt Town Rangers, which were formerly, well, a couple of them were formerly of Northwest Sydney Spirit, Erin Tavares, Olivia Sloan and Natalie Kasha. I'm expecting a lot from them 3. In particular, Kasha. Kasha's been a player that's promised a lot in the last couple seasons. Last year, she was a little plagued by injury throughout the campaign, so I expect her to be a little fitter this year and to really take a stranglehold of that midfield and lead this newly promoted team into the top tier.
Paula Boza, the Spanish midfielder, a player to watch, like one of the import slots being used here. Is that someone who we have seen the Spanish influence on NPL New South Wales last season? Do you suspect that might continue into this season?
Well, look, it'll be interesting to see how she adapts to life in Australia and the NPL competition. We know how strong this league is, and I think a lot of players, when they come into the NPL, they come into it as a state competition, not a national competition, and they might be a bit taken aback by the quality. I mean, we saw how many players progressed into the A-League women's competition from the NPL over the last couple of years. So it'll be a test for her as well. But a bit of Spanish influence is always good. I'm looking forward to see what she can bring to the league, definitely.
Other players with top flight experience, Libby Morris, Victoria Martin. It does seem as though they've got players that understand the league. My intrigue is scoring goals. Like, is it Monique Holder? Is it one of the players that helped the team win promotion? I think they've got a pretty good midfield and a pretty good defence, but they scored 93 goals in League One last season. You would think as a team, is that going to translate to the top flight, or is that going to be their biggest challenge coming up?
Well, there's rumours coming out of the Hills camp that Monique Holder's actually done her ACL, so we haven't got confirmation on that yet. But if that's true, that'll be a major hit to their attacking stocks. But again, scoring 93 goals in a season, doesn't matter what competition you're playing. You know how to find the back of the net, and I think that'll definitely help them and give them confidence moving into the NPL competition. I expect them to secure their top tier status pretty comfortably and be a mid-table side this year.
And they've got a New Zealand connection as well. Grace Johns, who was in the top flight last season after coming over, but also Madeline Ero, who at the time of recording is actually in the New Zealand national team as one of their 3 goalkeepers. So she hasn't won her first cap at the time of recording, but that's a pretty good vote of confidence in who they've got contending to be their goalkeeper as well.
Absolutely. I mean, bringing a player with international experience, well, at least in the international, in the squad, in the New Zealand squad, is massive for them. And I'm sure that the goalkeepers are so important in every football team. They just breathe confidence throughout the whole squad, in particular for the defence. So I think that's a key signing for them as well.
Now to the ladder, we're starting off at the bottom with Western Sydney Wanderers, who finished 13th. They had 6 wins, 5 draws, 15 losses. They had 39 goals for and 58 against. In the semi-final for the Sapphire Cup, they lost 2-1 to Apia Leichhardt. And in the club championship, they finished 11th on 146 points. Pozder, what do you think?
Look, it's going to be a very interesting season for the Western Sydney Wanderers. Last year, I think they were very inconsistent. There were a few games where they popped up and you were like, this Wanderers team is going to look really good this year. And at other times you thought, look, they might be in a bit of trouble here in terms of their status in the top tier. I think a big loss for them is Lauren Nada and Olivia Vanderlaan, in particular Vanderlaan. And I'll get to her later in the pod, but I think she's a big loss. But then again, they've brought in Alyssa Ansard, and Alyssa Ansard for me was the player of the year last year, to be honest, in my opinion. I think she was fantastic, and I'd love to see her and how she develops in this Western Sydney program.
I do think the challenge for this team is they've got even younger, and they even don't have players in that sort of 18 to 20 demographic anymore. We're really talking between the age of 15 and 17. So as far as the A-League players coming back, you just never know who might come back. Like last season, Amy Chisari was playing in this team, Kush LaRue. I think Kushla might be a year too old now, but Chisari might just be right on the borderline of being able to come back. But are they going to need that level of A-League influence and help to get enough points, or do you think the strength in depth is going to be enough and some of these talents are going to be enough to carry them to a safe points tally? I can't see them pushing for the top 6, put it that way, or the top 4.
Well, firstly, I think that the current talent they have in there that was there last year has that 1-year experience in the top tier. I think that will help them, in particular players like Alyssa McKenzie and Chelsea Barton. But it will definitely be another tough campaign when the A-League women's players come down. We saw last year that's when they got a lot of their points and they were a lot more competitive in games. It'll be interesting to see who comes down and how that changes the dynamic of the squad.
Another issue will be in May, the Under-17 Asian Cup. Never mind if Australia qualifies for the Under-17 World Cup, because that might start pulling a lot of these players out into camps, into preparation. We're talking Annabelle Kroll, who's been a regular goalkeeper in that squad. Mary Dalbroy, who was player of the tournament at the Emerging Matildas Championships. Tessa Young will be an important defender. Hayley Muir's not in the current Under-17s team, but I think she should make the tournament. Like, she only just got her senior debut last season, but I think she's an amazing talent in terms of her speed as a winger and eye for goal. And then maybe a player who's just at the bit of the older end of this team, this very young team. They've brought in Savannah Murray and also Maya Khalil from the Bulls Academy. So those are the players that they're perhaps going to be relying on to be there for the full course of the season when they're losing players to national team camps or having to have time off at the end of the A-League women's season.
We saw last year how it affected MacArthur when they lost a number of young internationals. So I do believe that they've still got a lot of depth here, but again, like you said, it's a test of this team's quality this league's quite physical now. I think that's where the difference is for these young girls coming through. So it'll be a proper test, and I can't see the Wanderers, like you said, being a mid-table team. I think they'll be down the lower end of the table again this year.
Coming in at 12th on the ladder, we had Sydney Olympic. They had 7 wins, 5 draws and 14 losses. They had 41 goals for and 54 against. In the Sapphire Cup, they lost in round 3, 4-1 to Apia Leichhardt. And in the club championship, they finished 13th on 102 points.
New coach this season, Sam McGowan. You probably, if you've ever watched the A-League, seen her on the bench at the Western Sydney Wanderers, second in command, but great to see another female head coach in the NPL Women's, coaching outright at Sydney Olympic, a team that had to really break glass in case of emergency with A-League players coming back last season, but many of those names ended up returning to the A-League and now are either TBCs or not coming back at all. So how do you assess the Sydney Olympic team with turning a new page under Sam McGowan?
All I can do is wish Sam McGowan a lot of luck. There's been a whole heap of change in this squad, and I think Sydney Olympic struggled last year. The A-League influence in the squad definitely helped them survive. The major issue were their 23s, and I think they're going to have similar issues again this year. They've also lost a whole host of key players. So just going through that list of players that were there for the whole season last year's Maya Fernandez and Sarah Yadam and Chloe Gordon, not to mention the A-League players that have left. So that's quite a big hole to fill. And then when you look at who's filled the hole, Zoe Panagopoulos has arrived from Apia, and we know how talented she is and the promise that she has. But will she be able to fill those boots consistently week after week as a youngster? I'm not too sure. I think it's a tough ask for such a young player. But I think the interesting one is the American forward, Morgan Witz. There's a bit of chatter about her, and she's been finding the back of the net in preseason quite regularly. So she could be key to them, but I think it's going to be a tough season for Sam McGowan.
So a player that also caught my eye, Ruby Nathan, has 6 caps for New Zealand. Now, we know how good Alyssa Wynnum has been in this league. She's obviously going to miss the entire year with an ACL, regardless of if she was coming back to Australia or not. But Ruby Nathan is the player who is continuously being picked for New Zealand ahead of Alyssa Wynnum. So I think it stands to... I know that her A-League record was like 1 goal in 40 games, but maybe in the NPL she'll have a bit more fortune at this level of competition. You mentioned Panagopoulos, is going to be a first-team regular that they're going to be relying on. Other players that caught my eye, Lauren Nada coming over from the Western Sydney Wanderers. I think she has A-League potential, so I'm hoping that she has a good season, playing, I assume, as a right-back for Sydney Olympic here. And another player who I remember playing a bit of seniors under M. Husband at Sydney Olympic, Ella Gatorna, is back in the NPL Women's, a centre-back, bit of height. Hopefully she has a good season if she's playing seniors as well. As you say, for the most part, it's going to be a battle for Sydney Olympic this season, but I'm intrigued as to what type of football they will play under Sam McGowan, and as you flag, that depth and the 23s will be important as well. So who knows which of those connections that Sam will have in the A-League that she might be able to leverage when the transfer window opens for A-League players to come back.
I think for them to have a comfortable season, they definitely need to strengthen with A-League women's players once that window opens for that opportunity. I just want to mention as well, they did bring in MacArthur Rams captain Lola Sosai, and Lola's been really good since she's returned to the NPL over the last couple of years. So that is a good signing, definitely, for Sydney Olympic, and I think someone with a bit of experience and a proper leader.
Now to 11th, we had MacArthur Rams. That was actually my first match of the round last season, so this one is a little bit sentimental to me. They had 9 wins, 0 draws and 17 losses. They had 41 goals for and 66 against. In the Sapphire Cup semi-final, they lost 1-0 to Mount Druitt. And in the club championship, they finished 12th on 124 points.
A season of massive change at MacArthur last year. The year before, we saw them lift the championship trophy and the premiership. They were dominant over the last few years, and last year was just a year of change, transition. I think for Vic Guzman last year, the plan was to just survive in the league, maybe push for a finals place. They were well off finals football at the end of the day. But this year, most of those players are experienced for an extra year. They've brought in some exciting players. Eliza Amendolia, I've been hearing that she's been excellent in pre-season. Isabella Solicito and Marcela Santos. I think she'll be really good to add a bit of experience to this attacking third of this team and potentially help the likes of some very, very talented youngsters up top like Teo Pellizzeri.
So the style of football they played was quite eye-catching last year. The results just weren't there to go with it a lot of the time. And this is another team that's going to be very vulnerable when call-ups come for the under-17s. Matilda Diaz-Wadowitz has been in squads. Many of the A-League players they'll be looking to bring back might have curtailed availability. Abby Puckett firmly in the mix there as well for the national under-17 team. So it falls right at a key time of the year in May, that Asian Cup, just when teams might be starting to work things out, sort of between rounds 8 and 12, you're going to be saying goodbye to a bunch of important players potentially. But I do like that there's a few more leaders, a few more adult players in this team to allow the youngsters to play around them. With that said, I suspect that priority number one is still avoiding relegation for this team. I know that if you've got Muchensky in the forward line, she was in double-figure goals last year, which was good. I think she can do that again. But can they genuinely set their sights any higher than just ensuring they avoid relegation, or should that just be the sole priority for this season?
Yeah, look, I think definitely that international break could affect them again. Well, not break because they don't get a break in the NPL, but you know what I'm saying in terms of the players going away for international duty. I think this team could potentially challenge for finals football, but I definitely agree with you. Their main aim will be to secure a mid-table position. And if they're able to do something more, then they will.
The other thing is, Vic Guzman's currently the assistant coach to James Slaveski at Sydney FC. She's got a role at Westfield Sports High, and also is going to be the head coach of this team. As we know, young, enthusiastic coaches can wear a lot of hats quite successfully. Hopefully, the juggling act can work out for MacArthur Ram's advantage. And they, you just never know what direction Sydney FC might go when the A-League season ends, and whether Vic Guzman is a permanent part of what they're doing into the future.
Like you said, the juggling for a young person generally is quite easy, but I personally think it's a difficult task for a lot of people to do. And when you've got now 3 jobs that you're trying to deal with, it's hard to put your concentration on one. But the club believes in Vic Guzman. Timmy Aitkins there at the club as well, who will definitely offer some support to her. So she's got a good support base. I still think that it is a little hard to juggle everything. So it'll be a good test of her too, and how she deals with all the work she's got in her hands.
Day after day, Kappa rewrites the concept of sportswear. Kappa means teamwork, past, present, and future. Kappa never stops, 'cause winning starts within. 2 people, 1 brand. Kappa.
Sydney University were 10th on the ladder at the end of the 2025 season. They finished with 9 wins, 3 draws and 14 losses. They had 36 goals for and 42 against. In the Sapphire Cup, they lost in the quarterfinal, which is round 5, 2-0 to Mount Druitt. And for the club championship, they finished 10th with 168 points. Pozder, what do you think about them last season?
I think it was a tough campaign for Sydney Uni last year, and I expect much the same this year. They're in a similar position to Sydney Olympic. In fact, I even think they might be in a worse position than Sydney Olympic is. This will be a really tough season. Xavier Taylor comes into the dugout. His first role as the head coach of the NPL team. He was the under-23s coach. He won silver with the under-23s. So he definitely deserves his spot as the Sydney Uni head coach. But it's going to be a big task. It's going to be a very difficult task. And I think it's going to be a long, hard season for Sydney Uni.
The key out for me is Sophia Fante. She was amazing in some of the games last season for Uni. They've also lost Bailey Broomhead. At least, I say lost. again, they're listed as outs for now. We don't know where these players are going to choose to go when they come back from A-League. Fonte's at Sydney. Broomhead is the fourth goalkeeper at the Mariners. Hannah Callahan was good in the game she played last season, but it's a lot of pressure to put on a young goalkeeper. And in the squad list provided to us at the time of recording, she's the only goalkeeper in their squad. So that is a lot of pressure, given that was the position that really, I think, led to their sort of safe status, avoiding the drop from relegation and picking up enough of those senior points last season. And really one of the reasons they only had a -6 goal difference in spite of finishing 10th in the seniors.
Yeah, I mean, Sophia Fonte last year was absolutely outstanding, and Broomhead was the second keeper. Now that she's gone as well, I think it'll be really tough for them to replace that. But you also look at the other players gone: Charlotte Hogan, Ruby Egan Brown, Jamie Bofels, and of course Talia Capitanellis. These are major outs, and I think it's going to be difficult for them to replace them.
One of the things about Sydney Uni is the whole is going to have to be greater than the sum of its parts. There's a good chance for a lot of players to make a name for themselves here, but this team seems like a bit of a departure from the rest of the league, where you recognise, players that have moved clubs, players that have played at a higher level or in other state NPLs. This Sydney University team is, I think, largely the go out and prove it team. And Kiara Benora is a player who's played for New South Wales at rep level in the Emerging Matildas Championships. I think she's a great young player, can play midfield or defence. But I'm just going to be perfectly honest. I do not know a lot of these players other than from last NPL season. And the onus here is on the unit to pick up enough points in the seniors to help them avoid the drop this season.
I saw Kiara Bonora last year at the Gladesville Ravens before she made the mid-season move to Sydney Uni. I have really high thoughts of her, and I expect her to be a proper leader in this midfield. Maddie Van Dyke is still there, so she'll be key as well to be a bit of a leader, and Alice Thompson. So I think those players will be key to helping the younger ones that are coming through the squad to try and push for safety, and I think that's what they need to be aiming for.
Northern Tigers were 9th. They had 9 wins, 6 draws and 11 losses. They had 49 goals for and 43 against. In the Sapphire Cup, they lost in the quarterfinal 4-1 to Apia. And in the club championships, they finished 9th on 179 points.
They had a lot of chances to push into the top 4 and to have a much better season last year, and they didn't take them, the Tigers. And that's even with Izzy Gomez coming and playing for them straight off the back of her first Matildas call-up. It seemed as though the performances belied the names on paper last season. What do you think the influence of a new coach and a bit of squad turnover will have?
It was a really strange 2025 for the Northern Tigers. And like you said, Teo, there was a lot of opportunities where they had to put the foot down to push themselves into finals, and they just took the foot off every single time. And it wasn't on one occasion. It happened 3 or 4 times, and they went through a really poor run of form, and it cost them in the end. Finn Geraghty comes in. He's been at the club for a number of years. He bleeds Northern Tigers. He knows what the club culture is about, which is important at the Northern Tigers, at North Taramara. It's all about the culture. They've been pushing that for a long time. And if you're at the Tigers, you buy into that culture. Pretty big loss in Hayley Johnson. She scored a bag full of goals last year for them. And they've also lost Savannah Murray, which we just touched on earlier. So a couple losses, but Charlotte Mortlock's still there. And for me, Charlotte Mortlock was one of the best players in 2025. I expect her to have an outstanding season this year.
I like some of the recruiting they've done. They've brought in Chloe Willando from the Emerging Jets, but she has a little bit of A-League experience and a bit of junior national team experience as well. And the big one for me, yes, Hayley Johnson goes, but they bring in Ellie Head from Watford, admittedly only the 3rd division in England, but she's already started scoring goals in pre-season. And the other one, Tanae Morris, A-League experience, Young Matildas experience, was averaging about a goal every 90 minutes for Brisbane City, and they won the League and Cup in the Queensland NPL. Now, I normally don't pump up the Queensland NPL, but in this instance, she's from South Australia. She's not actually a Queenslander, so maybe that lets me off the hook. I'm not saying nice things about Queensland. One other player to watch who I thought was quite underrated last season, another ex-Newcastle emerging Jet, Saffron Grass as well. I thought in spite of the team's form tailing off, I think she's quite an effective, hard-working midfielder for that team. So they've got some good individual players. Again, can the whole be greater than the sum of its parts? And I see Shadeen Evans is on that squad list as well. We know on her day she's an amazing player. I guess the question is, can you get a full season? Can you get double-figure goals, or would you just get a couple of amazing highlights over the course of the year?
I'll just go back to Ellie Head. So she's a former Chelsea and Arsenal academy player. So I think adding her to this attacking side, I think there'll be a lot of goals coming from her, and she needs to, as we said, to replace Johnson. But Lily McMahon's back. As you said, Shadeen Evans is there. We know her quality, and unfortunately, over the last couple of years, we haven't really seen her shine on a consistent basis. Maybe this is the year, and I'd really, really like to see her explode onto the scene again and come back and show us the quality consistently throughout the whole of 2026.
And one other thing in their favour, they've actually got two pretty handy keepers, because Olivia Riddle, another former junior Matilda, comes in. Anna Norton's probably going to start the season as number one, but just to have two, good keepers on the books, I think might help you through the midwinter grind in this competition.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an issue for them last year. I know that they struggled. Norton got injured and missed a lot of games. So having that stability in goals this year will be key for the Tigers. And potentially, for me, I see them a team that's pushing for the top four.
Gladesville Ravens finished 8th with 9 wins, 7 draws and 10 losses. They had 46 goals for and 40 against. In the Sapphire Cup, they lost 1-0 to Mount Druitt in the 4th round, and in the club championship they had 198 points, leaving them 7th.
This is one of those teams that were a little bit disappointing for me last year. We expected them to be pushing for finals football in 2025. Finishing 8th is, at the end of the day, quite off the finals places. They didn't really challenge in the end. They were there or thereabouts for a little bit, but then really fell off. And I think Lauren Phelps would have been pretty disappointed. I think people at the club would have been pretty disappointed. They recruited well last year, but in the end, they just couldn't put the results together. This year, they've lost key players. Lexi Moreno's gone. Alyssa Nsard's gone. These are two players that scored and created a lot of goals for the Ravens. But
the but is important.
The but is massive, because they have done some really, really good recruiting. And Hannah McNulty comes in, Gisela Pipino, Angelina Scamardella, and Lena Karmas.
But even on top of that, Laura Murtagh and Miku Sanaga, it's almost like they've put together an all-star team of NPL women's of yesteryear, because these are all players who have shone on the pointy end of the season for winning teams in grand finals. Basically, they have put together, I think, an extremely competitive squad, and they've got to be contenders for club championship, because obviously you can't cram all of those players into the same starting 11 every week.
And they in terms of the club championship, they're also quite keen on having a strong 23s team. They've always pushed for that, having one squad and getting results across the 23s and first grade, but they've never really pushed aside the 23s. It's always been a key team for them to win trophies as well. But like you mentioned, Laura Murtagh, I'm really excited to see her. We haven't seen her now for a couple seasons, I believe. Back in the NPL now, so it'll be good to see what she can do and what she can bring.
Teal Kilbride comes over from Apia. Annie Dashko rehabbing an ACL. Hopefully all goes smoothly and she'll be able to make a return to senior football after missing all of last season.
Morgan Roberts,
again, when you talk about sort of an NPL All-Stars team of recent years, she'd be, again, one of the players contending for it. Any perceived weaknesses that might limit their challenge to a top 4 run?
Last year, consistency was a major problem. And they had a good team last year. We can't say they didn't. They really did. Remember, they lost Isabella Edwards as well this year. So I think it's the consistency, and Lauren Phelps has to get it right this year. I mean, her and I have had a few chuckles at each other throughout 2025. I'm sure she'll remind me of some of my comments today, but I definitely expect them to be pushing for a top 4 spot. If they're not, I think it'll be a very, very disappointing season for the Gladesville Ravens.
And it would be remiss of me not to mention Jayla Lee on wing, who is closing in on 30,000 Instagram followers. So she's become independently famous away from football. And good on her. I hope her career as an influencer continues to bring attention to NPL women's, because obviously she's very passionate about football in addition to all her other social media work.
Almost got more followers than me, Teo.
We have NWS Spirit, who finished 7th at the end of the 2025 season. They had 12 wins, 5 draws, and 9 losses. They had 44 goals for and 36 against. They lost in the Sapphire Cup in round 4, 5-4 after extra time to Apia. And in the club championship, they finished 8th on 186 points. Pozder, what do you think?
If I was not very confident with Olympic and Uni, well, I'm definitely not confident with Northwest Sydney Spirit. Big changes at the club. John Saroukas comes in as the head coach. They've lost a whole host of players, and I think them and Olympic have had the largest turnover. The incomings haven't been some names that we're used to seeing across the league. I think their squad is very thin at the moment.
The one thing going for them is when we recorded this podcast last season, do you remember which team gave us the shortest list of players? It was Bulls FC. So, and they went on to be the champions. So maybe look, no one wants to jump at shadows at this time of the year, but I actually echo your sentiments. And I think the biggest thing is some of those outs aren't A-League players. They're heart and soul players like Victoria Martin and Kayla Osborne, who we'll talk about when we talk about where she's landed in the league. But like, that's tough to lose players who were synonymous with Spirit over recent seasons.
Well, we talk about them too, but they also lost Sky Halmerick, who was their source of goals for the whole of 2025. And the other one that did her job on a little bit quieter scale, it's Ariana Stoltzfus. She was very important to what they did last year. They've lost her as well. I am excited to see what Lucy Fukaneko can bring. She was good in patches last year when she played. Michaela Gavranic is a exciting player, and I look to see more of her.
Problem is, Gavranic and also Harper Pell, again, might get called up to that national under-17 team if they're in good enough form. So it's a double-edged sword. You play too well, you're off to Tajikistan or Uzbekistan or wherever the under-17s are playing for a month.
Well, that's the other problem, and we said that it looks as though they've got a very short squad. If this team doesn't bring in A-League players, I think they are in trouble, and I see them being in the bottom part of the table.
And that's the thing. They do have a really good record bringing in A-League players. I mean, last season, just Bethany Gordon popped up. You know, you couldn't ask for a better player at NPL level. And she's dominating the A-League, never mind coming back to NPL, and they just, slotted her in straight away. And hard to believe they had Madison McComiskey and Sophie Harding both playing for them for 5 minutes last season as well. So they've got a decent Rolodex, and they've got a good reputation. The question is, have they left themselves with too much work to do? And could the salvage job when the transfer window opens be a little bit too big? I think that's the concern ahead of at least looking at their squad on face value right now.
Yeah, absolutely. John Saroukas has a really tough task on his hands, and I'm not sure how they're going to be able to juggle all this year. If they can bring in the A-League players, they'll definitely be stronger, but I do think this will be a long season for Spirit.
Illawarra Stingrays came in at 6 with 12 wins, 9 draws and 5 losses. They had 38 goals for and 33 against. And for the club championship on 216 points, that left them in 5th.
Yeah, another team that pushed for finals and was pretty close in the end. They just missed out, really. 3 points outside the top 4, but that was with 2 late wins. I think the top 4 was already sorted by that time. But they did give a proper fight of it in the end. They just couldn't get there. But again, I think they've seen a lot of key players leave. There's no need to say more than Alexia Carastal. She's so key to the Stingrays. She's actually very key to every team she plays at, because we saw her at Manly how important she was.
Just because she's a really good player.
She's a fantastic footballer. She's ripping it up with the national team now at the Asian Futsal Cup, I believe it's called. And, losing a player of that quality, I think Steve Gordon's got a really tough task on his hands. I think that the Stingrays are lucky. There are 3 teams that are in worse shape than them at the moment.
I mean, the Stingrays, they've just steadily lost players over the journey that we've come to know as the Stingrays. Caitlin Cooper, Chloe Middleton's been gone for a few years. Danica Matos is now not playing NPL in A-League off seasons anymore, which is perhaps understandable, needs a break. And then you throw in, Siobhan Edwards, Alexia Carastal. They need to bring through a new generation of players, and the one intangible they have is that they've moved to Lakelands Oval in Dapto. They've got the home, which they've been crying out for such a long time. And hopefully from a culture and development point of view, we know this is a hotbed of developing talent. We know the Illawarra region and down that coast produces not just A-League players, but Matildas. It is a great breeding ground, a development centre for talented players. The question is, how many times can that turn into 3 points in NPL Women's at the weekend? Because you can have the pipeline going strong, but some seasons in the seniors, it is just going to be a little bit softer than others.
Look, they've brought in Ruby Egan-Brown and Annie Grove, so 2 good signings there. They've brought in an English visa player in Aileen Williams. Lots of positivity about her as well. But again, I think this will be a tough season for the Stingrays. That culture is super important to them, similarly to the Northern Tigers. And now that they have their own home, it may help them. They may be able to create that home ground advantage that they couldn't really do at Macedonia Park and JJ Kelly. Now they've got their home. Maybe this is what helps them create that home ground advantage and some place they can properly call home. So it'll be interesting to see what Steve Gordon's side does, but I don't see them being a finals contender this year.
Coming in at 5th last year on the ladder, we had Manly United. They had 13 wins, 6 draws and 7 losses. They had 45 goals for and 28 against. In the Sapphire Cup, they lost in round 3, 1-0 to Sydney Uni. And for the club championship, they finished up with 224 points, but that still left them only in 4th place.
In preparation for this podcast 2 weeks ago, Manly was going to be my team, the dark horse, the team that was going to surprise everyone. And then they lost 7-3 last week.
Against?
The Gladesville Ravens.
Ooh, well, that bodes well for Gladesville, because I'm pretty bullish about Manly too.
When I saw the list of players that they've brought in, Kayla Osborne, Brinley Gentle, Sarah Moore, fantastic recruitment. And the players that left, aside from Simonson, there wasn't anyone else that was a proper starting 11 player that left. All the superstars of Manly, Phoebe Gilbane, Ruby Jackson, Emily Manette, Anita Zorden, they're all there again. Plus, they've added some quality. I'm really excited what Tom Hopley's team can do this year.
And it's not often teams declare who they're signing from the A-League before the season starts, but they've just put Georgia Ritchie on the list, and she's getting first-team appearances for the Newcastle Jets at the moment. So again, Jodie Drever is there with the number 1 shirt, but they're going to have 2 good keepers, which makes such a difference in terms of, just a fail-safe and being able to continue to collect points even when your depth is challenged.
And we spoke about it earlier. I think having a strong goalkeeper and the capacity to replace that keeper if they're not playing, or with another strong keeper, is so important to the defence and the confidence of that back line. I really think this Manly team will challenge for a finals place. If they get it right, I think Manly could be challenging for the premiership this year.
One thing I wanted to... So, another A-League player they've just declared before the season, Emma Bates, also playing regularly for Newcastle. We saw her at the Emerging Jets last season. So, well done, Manly. Thanks for getting on the front foot and just showing your hand. They're going to go open Mazaire this season. The defence is interesting because in spite of getting sent off twice last season, I think Grace Arnold is a really good centre-back. And we know she's in the futsal Matildas, so centre-back, but also good at futsal, so good with her feet. But I think we talk about this every season. If you can read the ball in the air, if you can win headers, you can have a great career in football. And the example I always use is Polly Doran. No one has heard her name for years in the A-League because she's off playing for Norrköping in Sweden. She is a full-time professional footballer, and I'm telling you the reason that football is her job is because she can win headers. And she's good at the other skills and aspects of football. But I just think that there's Manly United's often that team where sometimes we question their ambition. They don't think they need A-League players coming back to be good. By the same token, we know there are anecdotes about players in their team who've had the opportunity to play A-League and turned it down, or maybe they just want to play, for recreational purposes, or NPL's good enough. But I do think there are some players that could push on. And if we have another exodus of talent out of the A-League women's with players that aren't Matildas moving overseas to chase, year-round professionalism, this Manly United team is going to have a lot of eyes on it, and I think with good reason. And I think Grace Arnold is one of those players that falls firmly into that demographic of, we've just seen Baxter Thew and Liz Gray go into the A-League. Why can't someone like a Grace Arnold?
Absolutely, and I think Ruby Jackson's in a similar position to her. Defensively, they look very strong. In the midfield, they look very strong. And up top, I mean, look at the firepower they have as well. This is a team I'm certain will be a top 4 contender. And it's been a while since they challenged for the premiership. But I think this could be the year that Tom Hopley finally gets his team in the finals.
And one other thing we talk about, the promoting from within. We saw Sienna Dale come through and return from her ACL with a burst of goals last season. Mackenzie Jeffs is a name I remember from the Emerging Championships 2 years ago with that dominant New South Wales Metro under-16s team. She might be in line to play some seniors this season. She's a tall striker, sort of similar to Amaya Markovsky. You might remember when that year she spent at Blacktown Spartans up here in New South Wales. So tall strikers, again, like centre-backs, they are a very rare player. And if you find one who's good, they tend to stick around for a very long time. So hopefully she can break into the seniors and do something this season.
Well, this is another club that also is proud of their culture and what they can build at Cromer Park. And like you said, they like to promote from within. And I think this is a team that'll definitely look to push some of their youngsters through. Another team that's proud of what their 23s and their younger age groups are doing. And I've always said, if we speak about the Stingrays and the South Coast being a hotbed of talent, so is Northern Sydney. And I think that these guys from the Northern Beaches will definitely throw up some talent.
Coming in at 4th, we had now Western City Rangers, formerly Mount Druitt Town Rangers. They had 14 wins, 6 draws and 6 losses. They had 49 goals for and 28 against. They lost in the Sapphire Cup final 3-0 to Apia here at the home of football Valentine Sports Park. And in the club championship, they finished 3rd with 227 points. Pozder, you and I spent a lot of time at Poppington Park last season, didn't we?
We did, and I think they took everyone aback. I think last year's pod I said I expected them to be a finals contender. They ended up squeezing into the top 4, but new name, new squad, new coach in 2026. Ben Goff leaves, and Milan Jovanovic comes in as his replacement in the dugout. He's spent some time at the Blacktown Spartans. Someone that's keen to coach, has got all of his badges, working hard in that respect, and I think that it's an opportunity for him to prove himself. But then when I saw their squad and the players they lost, I was very worried for them until I saw some of their inclusions. And we'll talk about the players that left. And Ella Buchanan, Kay Buchanan both left. Rosie Galea, Lena Karmas, Anna Harada, they're key players. But in come Brianna Clark, Alex Hunley's back, Ivana Galic, and Trudy Camilleri and Mary Mostagimi. So a bit of experience as well. It's interesting to see what the Rangers will throw up at us this year.
And I don't think the club name change and the identity change is going to be quite as fundamental because it's only their second year in the top flight in the women's program, venturing into new territory kind of. They fit the name change a lot better. We were talking about the identity crisis of, Mount Druitt's, not the name of the club anymore in the men's context. Maybe in the women's context, not as extreme. Ivana Galic is interesting. She was on the books of Canterbury United season before last. She's the cousin of Bianca Galic. Bianca took great umbrage to me saying they could pass for twins. She thinks they look nothing alike, but I think they do. She goes, Ivana's a lot stronger and a more centre back profile than a centre midfielder. We know how good Bianca was in this league, and Ivana now comes from the Canberra League with a pretty good reputation. Alex Hyun, we know she's a one-cap Matilda and she was playing in the Northern New South Wales League last season. I really like the defence and midfield, but Nikola, what about the goals? Because Ladlina Karmas last year, they've lost Erin Tavares this season, no Rosie Galea as well. Who is going to score the goals to get this team into mid-table and steer them clear of any talk of relegation?
Well, looking at the squad, the only player there that can score the goals at the moment is Ruqayya Al-Faraj. The problem that Rookie has is Rookie is injured a lot. If she can stay fit, she'll be key to the Rangers. If she's struggling with injury, they will struggle to find the back of the net, and this is where the problem will come in for Jovanovic and his team. It could be a season for Al Faraj to really break through. Last year she had a good year, and maybe this is the year she builds on from 2025 and can really explode in the goals department.
Maeve is the official ball sponsor of NPL New South Wales and Football New South Wales Leagues competitions. Visit Maeve Sports Australia for all your football needs. Maeve, a different league.
In third, we had the University of New South Wales. They had 15 wins, 4 goals and 7 losses. They had 52 goals for and 40 against. In the Sapphire Cup, they lost in the quarterfinal to Wanderers on penalties. In the club championship, they had 215 points that left them in 6th place.
I think UNSW is another one of those teams that we probably expected more from in 2025. But in 2026, this is a team that we expect to join the other two in the fight for the premiership without a doubt. And nothing less than that will be acceptable, I think.
I think they should win the lot for one very simple reason. Erin Naylor is arguably the best player, not just best goalkeeper, best player to commit to a full NPL women's season in the NPL era. The only person with a resume close to hers is Melissa Barbieri in terms of year-round, fully committed NPL players. I mean, maybe Lena Karmas would probably be on the podium there if you were to pick 3, and that's around the entire country. Erin Naylor's last club was Bayern Munich. 80 caps for New Zealand. If she is committed and plays every game of the season, this is a goalkeeper that should be transformative up the entire pitch. I don't think I'm putting too much pressure on one player because she's been to Olympics, she's been to World Cups, and she's still in the prime years for a goalkeeper. So that's a very good pickup. One little fly in the ointment is Ava Collins signed an injury replacement contract with the Western Sydney Wanderers. I don't know if that now knocks her out until the transfer window, or because it's an injury replacement, she can go back and start playing for UNSW straight away when Wanderers' season is over. Because again, this is a player with 12 caps for New Zealand, was just living in Sydney for her day job, and University of New South Wales said, hey, how would you like to keep your football career going? You're only 23. So 2 phenomenal signings. So UNSW, and that's before we get into other players around the NPL with great reputations that they've really deepened their squad with.
Well, let's have a look at the other players that they've deepened their squad with. Alexia Carastal, Jen Koukouris, Leah Burden, Lexi Moreno, Milan Hammond, who was probably the Jets' best player in the last 2-3 years, Poppy Channing. These are all players that are going to seriously add to the depth of this team. And, I mean, added to what they already had, Angelique Christodoulou, who had her best season in years last year. Aya Yamahata, for, as we said, who doesn't miss a header, especially for her height, as a central defender. She's been outstanding the last 2 seasons in the NPL. Sky Kasachi is still there. There's so much quality in this team. If they aren't challenging for the premiership, then Zoran Omovsky's got a bit of a headache on his hands, I think.
Poppy Channing was training on with Sydney FC all summer as well, so she's had a taste of that next level up, and I think she's a player with a lot of potential that, this might be the last full-time NPL season we see from her before she breaks into the A-League. And a player who I'm expecting a lot of is Leah Puxty, because this is, again, former Young Matilda, has been in and out of the A-League season on, season off, I think for the last 5 years now. So Newcastle, season out, Mariners, season out, Mariners, back out. So still someone in their early 20s who can be a dominant player at NPL level, and it's kind of tipping point now. Are you going to be an NPL player for the rest of your career, or are you going to have an outstanding season in what should be a winning team and really secure yourself as an A-League player for the rest of your career? So I think we are putting a lot of expectation on this team with good reason. I know you can find the ding or the drawback on a team. What's the ding on this team if there is one?
I think it's keeping the players happy. There's that much quality. We haven't even touched on Demi Koulizakis and Chloe Smith, who was in double digits last year. We haven't even spoken about them. So when you have this many stars in your squad, you can only, I think, put 18 on a team sheet. So and 11 starters. So how do you keep these players happy for 26 rounds? And that's if they don't bring any A-League players, A-League women's players back. So, which wouldn't surprise me if they did.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that they brought back Annalise Rasmussen from the A-League last season, and Sarah Langman actually came back and played enough games to end up winning Goalkeeper of the Year at awards night. So she was A-League Women's and NPL Women's Goalkeeper of the Year, but sadly she's done her ACL, so we won't see that this year, but that probably explains why Erin Naylor has come in.
Yeah, look, quality all over the place. Zoran Almoski needs to be challenging. His team, I should say, needs to be challenging for the premiership. And there's lots of pressure on them. I'm sure they'll take it with both hands. Can he keep the squad happy? Can they get the results in the park? Let's see what the new season brings.
Let's talk about Apia Leichhardt. They came second at the end of last year with 15 wins, 4 draws and 7 losses. They had 52 goals for and 32 against, leaving their goal difference at 20. They won the Sapphire Cup and beat Mount Druitt Rangers in the final 3-0 here at VSP. And then for the club championship, with 241 points, they took it out and ended up first.
Teo, you won't believe it. RP aren't my favourites for 2026.
They're not your favourites.
They're not my favourites.
Wow.
Your phone's going to be ringing off the hook.
For the first time in a couple of years, I think that UNSW is the favourite. But in saying that, this Apia team, they haven't lost anyone key from their side. They've recruited really well. They've become one of the strongest clubs, if not the strongest club in New South Wales over the last 5 years. Considering where they were, again, the upward trajectory of this football club, they should be very proud of what they've done and created there. And they've added some really, really fantastic signings. But I have to first mention Tanya Baratio. She's back after a year out through injury. And then the 2 big signings for me, Maya Lobo, who was fantastic for MacArthur last year, and of course, Talia Capetanellis, the signing of the season.
Exciting to see Talia Capetanellis. Apia actually only just announced her and sort of did the photo shoot and the video on social media last week. Now, I think there have been some big outs. Teal Kilbride was pretty important for them. Giselle Pepino, while not a first-team regular, is kind of a player who had become synonymous with Apia in recent seasons. Mel Caceres, who was the big signing last season, is not back. I mean, this is a team that's going to contend again because of the strength in depth. Ashley Crofts is going to be playing under her married name, Ashley Letter, this season. Of course, James Letter plays at the Southern Districts Raiders in NPL Men's. But, I mean, it's all the familiar faces of previous seasons where they've been strong. Jessica Seaman, Jordan Jasnos, who had a breakout year last year and then unfortunately got sent off in the grand final, but I'm not going to hold that against her. I thought that, the full season should not be spoiled by getting a red card in the grand final. Estelle Fragale, of course, who's been a strong player, one of the top midfielders in this league for a very long time. So what gets them over the hump? You say that they're not favourites. Is not being favourites the thing that might actually work in their favour?
Yeah, I actually don't think they dealt with the pressure that well last year. There was a lot of eyes on them, a lot of people talking about them being the best team, being the team that should win all the trophies, including myself. This year, taking the limelight off them and focusing it perhaps a little bit more on UNSW and even maybe the Bulls FC Academy, that might actually help Brad Attard's team. He's there again. I think this is his 3rd season now. The only trophy that's eluded RPR over the last few years is the grand final. And I actually think that Matteo Majorana in the backroom staff, and we know he's the head honcho there at the club, I think that's one of the key targets for RPR this year is to win the grand final. I do believe late mail that I received that Jess Seaman may not be playing this season, which gives Christina Kicek, who's a young national team player, the opportunity to break into the squad.
Well, she played the first third of last season. And then, of course, Claudia Chico and Tash Pryor came back from the A-League. Do you think they'll lean on that again? Or if things are going well when the window opens, do you think they might stick with a winning formula?
I think RPO will go again to the A-League, but I don't see them bringing in more than 3 players. And I think that's something that they want to give confidence to their current squad by not bringing in that many A-League women's players. And you look at this team, I mean, half this team can play in the A-League women's or have played in the A-League women's competition.
What about Supermum, Paige Hayward? Apparently she was back in pre-season training only 6 weeks after giving birth, Nikola.
Phenomenal.
And apparently in great shape. So
I hurt my toenail and I can't come back to play for a while. So that's it's phenomenal news for them. And again, it's leadership to the whole squad, just showing how important it is to be at training, working hard. Gives a lot of these young players something to strive toward, like Mia Golding, who was really good last year.
And what, she's only 15 turning 16 this year, Mia Golding, I think? Or 16 turning 17?
I think 16, 17.
Yeah, so
quite young. And then again, Jamie Bofels is there. She was so important for Sydney Uni last year. Once they lost her, their season sort of collapsed. So you look through this Apia squad. Again, I did say I'd take the pressure off them. I still expect them to be challenging for the premiership, without a doubt. But are they the favourites? No, but they should be challenging for the premiership, of course.
I agree. I think they'll actually benefit from not being an outrageous, unbackable favourite, as perhaps they have been in previous years. All right, Maeve, we're at the very pointy end of the ladder, our last individual team.
Yes, we had Bulls FC Academy. They finished first with 16 wins, 4 draws and 6 losses. They had 57 goals for and 31 against, leaving their goal difference at 26. They came second in the club championship, finishing on 235 points.
What a season for the Bulls FC Academy. I think they came out of nowhere. If from memory, were actually speaking that it was going to be a tough season for the Bulls. But I've got to put it down to Marty Garces. I actually spoke to Tseka on Tuesday night, and he said, you guys never give the coaches enough credit. And I've got to say, Marty Garces deserves every bit of credit that he got last year and moving forward.
I worry with the musical chairs at the end of the A-League women's season, is Marty Garces going to get a phone call? Or I know that MacArthur, the parent club of Bulls Academy, have started to do a bit more work on their website, on their main social media about the women's program. They are on record, but not like flag in the ground, 27-28 season, which is when Auckland are proposing to come into the A-League women's as well. Leaving that aside, do you think it could be a Mark Torcaso situation where he was coaching Calder on a promise that when Western United comes in, you've got the job? Or do you think that if Western Sydney Wanderers or Sydney FC, both of whom we expect potentially to change coaches at the end of the A-League season, I mean, if they hired Marty Garces, they'd be hiring an outstanding coach. So does he take that phone call, or does he stick with the potential to one day coach a MacArthur A-League women's team?
I've spoken to Marty on a few occasions last year, and I think he's a proper, genuine, loyal guy. I think if he has an agreement with the MacArthur Bulls to take their women's side into the A-League women's season in 27-28, if they do get the license, I think that he'll stick to that agreement and he'll be there. But I've got no doubt he'll be tempted by the A-League women's clubs that are looking for coaches. I also wouldn't be too shocked if some men's NPL teams came after him.
He's got a good history there as well. You
Yeah.
know? So with that said, beyond Marty, they are putting together another team that should contend. And it's a lot of players on the upswing. And I think they have insulated themselves against the requirement to have A-League women's players come back. Last season, they definitely needed it. This season, it looks like they've put a far more sustainable squad together to play the full number of rounds.
Yeah, look, Gemma Ferris is there again, Daniela Naimi, Patria Phillips, who was one of the best players in the competition in 2025, returns again, and of course, Tammy Souza. These are all key players for the Bulls in that championship and well, I should say, double run from last season. They've added Olivia Vanderlaan, and I saw her on a few occasions last year. I saw her play in the 23s as well. There's something about that girl that excites you when she gets on the football park, and I think this could be a season we've seen a lot of youngsters really explode under Marty Garces, and I think Olivia Vanderlaan could be one of those.
I think they're going to potentially really put fear into teams because they've got Vanderlaan and they've got Jade Guichon. And it sounds like I'm sticking up for a lot of players that got red cards last year. But until that red card, I thought Jade Guichon was on the upswing and looking absolutely devastating. She's been away with the Australian schoolgirls. So she's got a bit of representative experience overseas. And they're both tall, they're both physical. Vanderlaan, Guichon, we were speaking about taller women target players and attackers. They are a rarity. I feel like Bulls just have a point of difference with their attack. Arun Serjan, joining from Wanderers Academy as well. She was a first-team regular for them last season, so Bulls are the beneficiaries of a player leaving the Wanderers Academy there. Whatever A-League players they may add, if someone like a Janea Dos Santos who scored in the grand final comes back, Indy Dos Santos is going to be getting right to the end of her rehab. in about June or July. So that might time well if the Dos Santos sisters do want to come back and play some NPL. But if they don't, fair enough. I mean, I just think they're going to be right there again, but it's on the strength of what they've got now rather than what they could be signing in the transfer window.
Well, I think one of the other unsung heroes was Anna Hogarth-Scott last year. I thought she had a really good season and didn't probably get enough attention as she should have. This year she may. I don't think she'll run under the radar as she did last year. So this is a team with a lot of quality. They haven't changed too much from last year. We know that they've lost a few A-League women's players, but they haven't changed too much. I think their biggest change is Mia Namoto, but they've brought in Nicole Simonson to replace her.
And that's probably the key difference, I think, between the three major contenders. But anything else on Bulls before we get into our end of the podcast categories?
No, I just think they'll be, again, challenging for silverware this season. Will they be able to repeat last year's feat? I don't think so, but I do believe they'll be there to challenge for all three trophies on offer.
All right, so that's our team by team. We're going to finish off the pod with a few quick fire predictions. Stay with us on Kickoff. Welcome back to Kickoff. It's the home stretch, and it is time for reputations on the line. Who's got more to lose, I wonder? It's our predictions, and Maeve, Sparrow, you've got 7 different categories for us to run through for what we're going to look into the crystal ball and see for the season ahead. So take it away. Where would you like to start?
Alrighty, I'd like to start it off with signing of the season.
I have to go Talia Capitanellis. I think she's shown that she's got quality in the league, and I think Apia will really benefit from having her, and she'll be there to replace Charlotte Lancaster.
Erin Naylor, hands down. As I said in the
Expected.
chat, in the chat about UNSW, it's one of the most decorated players to commit to being a full season player ever since the NPL rebrand.
Breakout star.
Look, that one's a tough one to pick. Charlotte Mortlock, I think, broke out somewhat last year. But
just to define this category, would you have said that Jordan Jasnos was a breakout star last season, or was she a sort of a player that went to the next level last season? I mean, how would you define her? Is it someone you've never heard of that appears, or someone that's been around the NPL that just goes to an A+ level of performance?
Well, I've got both, Teo, so I'm all right.
No, good. Sorry to interrupt.
My second one would have to be the Chantal Manidi or Olivia Vanderlaan. I think Manidi, for her size, had a fantastic season last year. She's a representative as well of the Philippines, I believe. She's a good leader at the Rams. I expect her to have a really good season, in particular with the Rams being better than what they were last year. And Vanderlaan, I'm really excited to see what she can bring. Like we said, she's tall, long legs, creates problems for defenses, and I think she's one that could really hit headlines.
I think all the players that I expect something of are, is this the last season we see from you in the NPL full-time before you go and become an A-League women's player, whether it's Lauren Nada at Olympic, Jade Guichon at Bulls Academy, Hayley Muir at Wanderers, or Poppy Channing as well at UNSW. So I think there's a lot of players to watch in that sort of category. Is this the season in the NPL where you take that next step and you become a household name by moving into the A-League women's off the back of an outstanding NPLW campaign?
I want to hear your Mystic Nick prediction for the top 4.
Mystic Nick's top 4 prediction, I think it'll be in this order. I'll even go the order for you, Teo.
Here we go.
UNSW in 1, Apia in 2, Bulls in 3, Manly in 4, Grand Final Apia champions against Manly.
I think UNSW also for top, Apia second. I am inclined... Gee, it's pretty tough to cram 4 teams, isn't it? Who was your top 4 again?
No, you got to think of your own, mate. Don't steal my top 4.
I really want to put Gladesville into my top 4. I do think they will squeak in, but it's hard to leave out one of the big 3. So UNSW, Apia, Bulls, they'll all be there. And I'll have Gladesville completing my top 4. But I do think UNSW will end up as the grand final winner.
Who's taking out the Golden Boot for the 2026 Women's NPL season?
I'm going to say Talia Capitanellis. She showed that she can score goals, lethal left foot, and I think she'll shine in this team where she'll get more opportunities to score more goals.
I mean, I talked her up during the Northern Tigers chat, so I'd better double down. Tanae Morris, great reputation as a goal scorer coming into this league. did well at Brisbane City. I think she will do well at the Northern Tigers. I reckon, I'm not saying 20 plus, I reckon it'll be high teens, but I'm going with Tanae Morris to win the Golden Boot.
And what's your team to watch?
I think it'll be Manly, and I think they will play in the grand final. So I'm expecting Manly United to play finals football and challenge for the championship.
I know I didn't pick them top 4, but I suspect that the Northern Tigers will be of great intrigue again, just like last season where they had a very good team on paper and it didn't quite click. I was going to choose Manly, but again, we didn't brainstorm before this, so in order to pick someone different, I'm going to go with the Northern Tigers.
Thankfully, I get to go first.
Yes.
And who do you think the coach of the year will be this year?
I think Brad Attard lifts the trophy for Coach of the Year. I think the championship that he's going to win at the end of the season
Very confident in that one.
will help him lift his own personal trophy.
Lauren Phelps getting Gladesville into the top 4, excellent recruiting. I think Lauren Phelps will be Coach of the Year.
And now we're going to wrap it up with discussions of round 1. The match of the round for the first round of the 2026 Women's NPL competition is Hills United versus Bulls Academy FC.
It always seems as though the newly promoted side gets the champion or the premier. I think this will be a proper test for Hills to see where they are against one of the strongest teams in the competition. If they can give a good account of themselves here, I think that then they'll grow confidence into the rest of the season, and they'll know that safety shouldn't be something they should be worrying about, and more so focusing on building for years to come.
Saturday, March 7 is that first day of the season, Tigers versus Gladesville, and then I reckon we're going to learn a lot at 3 o'clock on that first Saturday of the season. Spirit against Sydney Olympic. That's 2 teams that need to really show us something and announce themselves to the rest of the competition. I mean, the other games, you got Rams against Manly, Apia against Sydney Uni, Western City Rangers versus UNSW, and Stingrays against the Western Sydney Wanderers. I mean, what catches your eye along with match of the round there?
I think the Rangers game is going to be interesting as well. You want to see how UNSW will do travelling out west against a team that I think is a little bit unknown. And I'll be really intrigued to see how the Rangers line up that day and if they can sort of bring up a surprise and shock the competition favourites.
I just get the feeling that you and I, Maeve, are going to reconvene for an episode of Kickoff, and it's going to be talking to a guest from a team we said their team was going to be in relegation trouble.
That always happens.
And they'll be flying in the top half of the table. It's hard to tell which one. It does seem as though there's a clear divide at the moment between the contenders and the battlers, and you might still be a battler and finish 4 or 5 spots off the bottom of the table, as opposed to bootstrapping yourself on to a top 4 race. So I'd like to think it'll throw up enough surprises that there's not a clear divide in the league. But for now, it appears as though there is. Nikola, any last words before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just excited for the season to start and to see how many predictions I get right.
Maeve, looking forward to catching up with you again on Kickoff for the rest of the season.
Yes.
And of course, we will see you on the Football New South Wales social channels, getting out, doing Match of the Round, hosting events as you do. And it's another exciting season. Looking forward to working alongside you.
For sure. I'm super pumped for this season. It's my first full season and I can't be more excited for what's to come, not just from a media perspective, but also the quality of players that we've got coming in and also exporting out to the A-League and also so many mentions of the young Matildas. So I'm super pumped, and Teo, I'm excited to see you out and about, and also you, Pozder, out and about around at the grounds.
Yeah, I think I've signed myself up for UNSW versus Western Sydney Wanderers as my first game. I'll actually be hanging out for some NPLW after a very busy summer on A-League men's and women's. I mean, I'm a sicko. I just love every level of football that's on offer. We worked on Australian Championship.
Yes.
We've got the Asian Cup coming up. Just give me more. All right. If you've enjoyed the podcast and you want to follow us through the course of the season, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and you can rate us 5 stars while you're there. You can watch every live streaming game in NPL Women's on the Football New South Wales YouTube channel. Nikola, you'll be back commentating, of course. Where can we hear your voice in the short-term future?
I won't be on any women's games in the first 4 rounds, but I'll be there very, very soon because I've been a part of this league for such a long time and I can't wait to get back in on it.
Excellent. Football New South Wales YouTube channel is where to follow. Maeve, Sparrow, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Teo.
And on behalf of our crew at Football New South Wales, my name is Teo Pellizzeri. Thanks for your company on Kickoff. This was our 2026 NPL Women's Season Preview. We'll see you next time.
The overhead kick, and what a goal it was! Stewart makes it 1-1.
And it is a gorgeous little chip.
This could well be the moment.